The flash of blue lights bounced off the lake and lit up the side of my boat. I stood at the dock, one boot on the weathered plank, mug of coffee in hand, trying to steady my breath as two officers walked toward me. Their boots hit the wood in slow rhythm, the kind that says this isn't a social visit. Behind them, I could already see her arms crossed, chin high, phone still glowing in her hand. Patricia Hanley. Or as the whole neighborhood called her, the HOA, Queen of Harbor Point. What she didn't know yet was that she'd just called 911 on the man who owned the entire marina 3 months earlier. I'd moved into the old Whitmore property, a quiet lakeside home with cedar posts, an American flag that used to belong to my father, and a back porch where the air smelled like pine and rain. I wasn't looking for trouble, just peace. But in HOA neighborhoods, peace often comes with fine print. The real gem in that property wasn't just the view. It came with a 51% ownership stake in the attached marina, the same marina the HOA believed it controlled. I didn't know it then. That small legal clause was about to ignite a neighborhood war. Patricia ran the HOA like a monarch with a rule book. Her pastel folders, printed citations, and condescending smiles were infamous. I'd heard she once fined a veteran because his flag wasn't proportionate. At another time, she banned a child's tree swing because it wasn't architecturally consistent. She first came to my porch, binder in hand. Her voice was coated in sugar. "Welcome to Harbor Point," she said, handing me a folder thick with regulations. I've highlighted all the watercraft rules in yellow. I nodded politely, thanked her, and set it aside next to my father's old coffee mug. That mug had seen tougher mornings than this. Days later, I brought my modest 24-foot cruiser down to the dock. She wasn't a fancy yacht, just something my dad and I used to rebuild on weekends, a reminder of simpler days. The lake breeze was calm until I heard that voice. "Excuse me, you can't dock that here." I turned to see Patricia, clipboard raised like a badge of honor. I explained that my deed included marina rights, but her smile faltered. "The HOA board must approve every vessel," she insisted. That was my first bombshell moment. "Actually, Patricia, I'm not just using the marina." "Cone it." Her eyes narrowed. "That's impossible, not according to county records," I said. Showing her the paperwork on my phone, you could almost see the gears turning in her head, anger blending with disbelief. But Patricia didn't retreat. She regrouped. Over the next weeks, she launched an email crusade. Subject lines screamed unauthorized boat, endangering community safety and property values at risk. She even called for emergency HOA gatherings, where neighbors whispered behind lawn chairs. Some believed her. Others just didn't want to be her next target. Every time I stayed calm, I sent documentation, legal proof, and county seals. Still, she doubled down, taking pictures, measuring dock distances, even hiring her nephew as a marine consultant. Then came the infamous HOA meeting. Patricia stood at the podium, slides projected behind her, titled "The Boat Problem, a Threat to Harmony." Each photo showed my boat in some twisted angle, red arrows circling every shadow. When she finished, I walked to the front. "If I may," I said, connecting my phone to the projector. Up came the original marina charter and deed. As you can see, this marina is not under HOA authority. It's privately owned, and I'm the majority stakeholder. The silence that followed was heavy. Some neighbors glanced at Patricia. A few smirked. One man coughed into his hand to hide a grin. Patricia's face tightened into a shade of red Crayola never named. She screamed, "This can't be legal!" I smiled. "It's not just legal, it's filed with the county clerk." 2 days later, I learned what happens when pride meets power. I'd just returned from a peaceful morning cruise when the sirens appeared. 2 patrol cars, lights cutting through the mist. Patricia stood at the shoreline, phone still in her hand, pretending shock. "Officers," she called out. "He's trespassing and docking illegally." Officer Riley approached, voice firm but not hostile. "Sir, can we see proof of ownership?" "Of course," I said, pulling up the files. Riley studied them for less than 30 seconds before exhaling through his teeth. He turned to her. "Ma'am, this man owns the marina. You can't trespass on property you don't control." Her mouth fell open. She tried again, but the HOA, the second officer, cut her off. "Ma'am, calling 911 over a civil dispute is a misuse of emergency services."
Ah!
The silence that followed was delicious, she stammered, then stormed off, muttering about standards and civility. That night, I sat on my porch, watching the reflection of red and blue lights fade across the lake. My father's flag swayed gently above me. I remember whispering to myself, some lessons come with paperwork. Within days, news spread like wildfire. Neighbors, who once stayed silent, started sharing their own stories. Patricia banning wind chimes, rejecting mailboxes, even policing lawn chairs. One man told me she made him repaint his shed twice for being too cheerful, so I called for a marina-wide meeting. The community hall overflowed. The air buzzed with years of bottled frustration. I stepped up to the front. "We're making changes," I said. "First, we're fixing the dock's new lighting, safety rails, proper cleats." Applause broke out. "Second, slip assignments will be fair. No favoritism. More claps. And finally, no more harassment. Respectful boaters are welcome. Period." From the back, Patricia's voice cracked through the applause. "This is a coup. You're destroying our traditions." Before I could answer, old Mr. Reynolds stood up, leaning on his cane. "No, Patricia. You destroyed this place years ago. He's just rebuilding it." The room erupted. Decades of resentment poured out stories of fines for bird feeders, citations for kids' bikes. By the time it ended, even the HOA vice president stood. "I move for a vote of no confidence in our current HOA president," he declared. MC6, the count was swift. 18 for removal. 1 against Patricia's sister. When the gavel hit, Patricia stood frozen, trembling. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. A week later, I posted the new marina rules. Simple, fair, safe, at the entrance. I added a sign that read, "Harbor Point Marina, privately owned and operated. Respect welcomed here." 2 weeks after that, I got an application in the mail. Applicant, Patricia Hanley. She'd bought a small sailboat, probably hoping to claw her way back. I read the form slowly, noting her record false reports, harassment complaints, and that little misdemeanor for misusing 911. I stamped it, denied, and underneath, I wrote, "Decision final." The next morning, she showed up at the dock shaking the paper in her hand. "You can't do this. I am Harbor Point." I looked up from the ledger, calm as ever. "You were, Patricia?" "There's a difference." She left in silence. Within months, court fees and fines forced her to sell her home. She moved to a desert town in Arizona, far from any body of water. The new HOA, there probably still doesn't know what's coming. That evening, I sat on my porch again, same flag, same mug, the lake whispering like it had that first day. The marina lights shimmered softly across the water, reflecting peace that didn't need permission slips. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it quietly steadies the dock, and for the first time since moving here, I truly felt at home. If you've ever stood up for your home, your peace, or your dignity, hit that like button and subscribe to Neighborloom. Because some battles aren't about pride, they're about principle.